We are live in 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. We are live now.
Yeah, good evening, everybody. We are back here again with Monday Motivation, and we are here with the mother of all subjects. And today we are going to be talking with Dr. Sanjiv Haribhakti on the topic of Bhagavad Gita. We are going to be talking on how to deal with a crisis in life, taking lessons from Bhagavad Gita. Of you may or may not know that there is a certain argument about Hinduism being a religion. People say that it is a way of life. And the reason being is that for any religion, there has to be a prescribed text. So, does our religion have a prescribed holy text? Is Bhagavad Gita our prescribed holy text? So, if you ask artificial intelligence and if you do a bit of research, you find out that the late century, 18th century, the Bhakti movement took charge, that Bhagavad Gita, there was a resurgence of Bhagavad Gita. Though it's a very ancient text, it can be claimed to be written as like the story is about 5,000 years old. But the resurgence of Bhagavad Gita as our holy text has been over the last 150 to 200 years. And it was taken up by leading saints, especially from Maharashtra. Also, it was taken up by our leading freedom fighters. Most of our freedom fighters have written a commentary on the Bhagavad Gita. Currently, if you travel by air and if you happen to look at a bookstore, you will find that there are innumerable copies of Bhagavad Gita. And people tend to pick up the copy which resonates with them. And, doing business lessons, like treating it like an MBA book. Bhagavad Gita is an MBA text or Bhagavad Gita is a finance text seems to be very popular. But here we have somebody who's one of our own, a surgeon, Dr. Sanjiv Haribhakti, who has for years studied the Bhagavad Gita and then took it upon himself to write a book in a language which resonates with us and everybody, and today he shall talk on his book. And I would now hand over the proceedings to Dr. Dhiren Ganjwala, our past president of Pediatric Orthopedic Society of India, holding numerous national level positions at an academic level, and who has been extremely active on OrthoTV, conducting numerous academic programs. To introduce our speaker, Dr. Sanjiv Hari.
Yeah, thank you, Tushar. And you really explain the basic of the topic really well. And that's precisely the reason why today we have this session, like how to deal a crisis in life. We don't want, but every one of us have some or the other crisis. And at that point, it's really become a challenge for us how to overcome that difficult time. And today we are going to have with us Dr. Sanjiv Haribhakti, who is going to explain that on the basis of the message of Bhagavad Gita. Now, to introduce our speaker, let me tell that he's not a PhD doctor. He's a surgical gastroenterologist. He got trained at the prestigious Sanjay Gandhi Institute of Postgraduate at Lucknow. And then he started his practice in Ahmedabad. And at present, he's the director of Kaizen Multispeciality Hospital. He has a vast interest in academics. He has numerous publications and also written a textbook, particularly on the surgical aspects of gastrosurgery. And recently, he had two interesting contributions outside the field of medicine. 2 years back or 3 years back, he wrote a book, The Big Five, in which he described the big lessons of the life. And then recently, 3 months back, he had another very big book on Bhagavad Gita. And that's in a simple way, he has tried to explain the message of Gita. So today, I'm sure that Dr. Sanjiv Haribhakti is going to share his vast reading and experience of Bhagavad Gita in a very simple manner. Over to you, Sanjiv.
Thank you, Dhiren bhai. Thank you, Dr. Tushar. It's really my pleasure and my honor to be here. I'm so fortunate that you have given me this opportunity to share some of my understanding about Gita. I in no way claim to be an expert on this subject. It's a vast subject, and much of what Shri Krishna has revealed in Gita, we are just, at the shore, just trying to dip our feet into the water, trying to understand a little bit of this vast ocean of knowledge and understanding that Shri Krishna has unfolded in Gita. The topic that has been given to me is how to deal with a crisis in life. So we all undergo crisis sometime or the other. If you look at the literal meaning of crisis, it comes from the Latinized version of the Greek word, which means turning point in a disease. That is a literal definition. But crisis is often described as a situation sometimes mostly difficult or dangerous, and it creates many problems for us. It's generally comes as an emergency condition of instability, danger, and on a collective basis, it may be on a social, economic, or political or international affairs. It is more of a critical time in our life, which leads to a decisive change. Either we improve because of this crisis, or things get worse if we are not able to take charge of the situation. And the common underlying factor in most crises is the intense psychological stress that it causes. And there is some connection with Bhagavad Gita here. Now, crisis is a process of transformation where the old system is no longer maintained, and therefore there is a need for change. And therefore the change management comes into view here. That's why, in my opinion, every crisis is an opportunity for us to learn, to expand, and to grow. And that is how we should take a crisis. And it's very interesting that the Chinese word for crisis, Wei Chi, comprises of two Chinese characters, which means danger and opportunity together. So hidden within this danger or the difficulty, there is an opportunity for us to learn, expand, and grow. We are going to talk about personal crisis in life. We're not going to talk about collective crisis that nations face. But generally, the personal crisis in life mostly comes suddenly. The commonest and the most difficult for us to endure is the death of a near and dear one who is very close to us, one of our immediate family. Either we or our near and dear one is detected to have a life-threatening disease. Somebody has a major financial loss, failures in either exams or other failures in life, and of course, natural disasters. We have faced earthquakes and tsunamis and things like that. There may be ongoing personal crises in life with domestic violence, family disputes commonly cause this kind of crisis, legal battles, divorce, and of course, we are seeing today in Gaza and Ukraine, the war and its consequences on people individually as well as collectively. So there could be any crisis in life, personal crisis, and we will see how we respond to this crisis. In the early times, when we know about the crisis, it comes to us as a shock, a disbelief, an emotional outburst, sometimes anger. Rarely, it also leads to suicidal tendencies. Later on, it can also lead to depression, anxiety, phobias, and commonly it causes post-traumatic stress disorders. So how do we manage a crisis? What matters the most in a crisis? And in one word, if I want to summarize, it is the mind that matters the most. And our understanding of the worldview, our understanding of the situation, our emotional stability, how we can tackle this situation, our rationality of the mind, how we can rationally analyze the situation and respond to this challenge. In a nutshell, it talks about the maturity of our mind. How much matured is our mind to tackle this crisis, to tackle this situation effectively. And here, this is where the connection of Bhagavad Gita and crisis happens. Because Bhagavad Gita is a text which takes care or helps us to modulate our mind. It is a treatise on psychology and our worldview about our existence. It talks about not just the reality of our own self, but it talks about the reality of the existence as well. And if we understand this reality, it will help us to accept the reality, and it will help us to keep our mind stable and composed even within a crisis. It is important that we need to prepare ourselves actually before the crisis happens. And that's why Bhagavad Gita is a manual for life. It is a manual for crisis in our life. And we should understand it before crisis happens in our life so that we are well prepared to face such crisis in life. Bhagavad Gita not just covers the crisis, but it actually covers all aspects of lives. And that's why there are numerous life lessons on all different aspects of life, how we can live happily in spite of any given situation. The most striking thing that I understood from Bhagavad Gita as I started learning more and more about it is its approach. It approaches our life and solution from what I call it as an inside-out approach, where we need to look within for problems and solutions. Most of the times, we keep looking out for problems. We try to blame people for our problems, and we try looking outside for our solutions. But we seldom look deep within us. And this is where, if we can understand and accept the reality of the life, and it is also important to understand that reality remains a reality, even if you don't accept it. It does not change. What needs to change is my own perceptions and not the situation. We should not try to change the given situation because we cannot change most situations or people. And that's why most of our times what we try to do is we try to change the people, we try to blame people, thinking deep within ourselves. What we need to do is to change ourselves. And to change my own self is my own responsibility. Nobody else can do that for me. And that's why most of the things are within our control. And this change management or changing our own self requires a lot of self-awareness, self-reflection, and a lot of efforts. And that's why it is very important to understand what Shri Krishna is trying to tell us in the Bhagavad Gita. I'll try to quote some of the well-known or commonly known shlokas in Bhagavad Gita to try and give some example or ideas. In Bhagavad Gita, Shri Krishna tells us that mind can be our friend or it can be our enemy. It depends on us how we look at this and how we are within control of ourselves. And this shloka of the 6th Adhyaya, Shri Krishna says, Bandhuratmatmanastasya yenatmaivatmanajitaha anatmanastu shatrutve vartitatmaiva shatruvata. Means that mind is a friend for the one who has self-control. Whereas for the one who does not have that kind of self-restraint for oneself, mind behaves like one's own enemy. And that's why self-restraint is very, very important in our life to befriend our mind. And our relationship with our mind determines how we respond in a crisis, because this is how we can deal with the crisis. So essentially, we have to change our own self, and only with changing our own self, our life will change for better. So Bhagavad Gita is an overview of 700 shlokas, which are like a dialogue between Shri Krishna and Arjuna in the battlefield of Kurukshetra within Mahabharata. there are 18 adhyayas. Adhyayas are the chapters of Bhagavad Gita. The first adhyaya is a background story, how Arjuna comes on the battlefield, fully prepared for war. He is, full of enthusiasm. And this is kind of an allegory of our own life. We sometimes are so enthusiastic and then something happens and entire enthusiasm of ours vanishes in a moment. And this is what happens to Arjuna, the greatest of warriors of all times. When he sees his own people in the opposite army, he gets into a attachment, and he is engulfed with attachment. And this is a crisis that he faces. And this is where Shri Krishna steers him out of the crisis in the second adhyaya, where he provides him the problem and he gives him the solution. In brief, he tells him about how we can, what should be our view of the reality. He tells him what he should do. He talks about karma yoga, and he also talks about sthita prajna, the enlightened wise person, in the second adhyaya. From the 3rd to the 17th adhyaya, or the chapters, Shri Krishna, he shows all the different ways of reaching to the solution in details of the different paths, the different options, the different, understanding of our life, in the day-to-day life also. And finally, in the 18th adhyaya, Shri Krishna summarizes the goals and the path that we can choose to reach these goals. So it's a very, very methodical treatise. It goes methodically, but it's not that you have to read methodically. You can read anything. You can open any shloka, and if you read, you'll get some understanding of the meaning of that shloka, at least, even if there is no context of the earlier or the later adhyayas. So that is the beauty of Bhagavad Gita. Though there is a connection between all adhyayas and all shlokas, but you can actually read anything. Just open any page and read anything, and you'll find a context in your life to connect it with. Now let's talk of the commonest crisis, how we can deal with the loss of a near and dear one in our life. Now, understanding of the death, which is the only certain reality of life. And most of us are never prepared for this. We study for many years in our education, but nowhere it is taught to us how we can, accept this, how we can understand what is death, and how we can, actually deal with death of a near and dear ones. Nobody teaches us. Death is like a taboo. We don't even discuss death with our near and dear ones. So this is the biggest problem. In India, we believe in rebirth. Most of us who have lived in this subcontinent will believe that there is something like, a life after death. This is what we probably believe. We will say that, "Acha kaam karo, chalo kahi to aage kaam mein aayega. Agar is janam mein nahi to agle janam mein kaam mein to aayega." So this is how we discuss, we talk, So it's ingrained in us that there is a life after death. Death is not an endpoint. Death is not a full stop, but there is something after death. And our Shastra tell us that we are in a cycle of birth and death. It is ongoing and it is not a full stop. Full stop can only come when somebody becomes enlightened and achieves freedom. Then there is an end to this life cycle of birth and death. But what Shastra tells us that death is of the physical body, not of the individual, not of the jiva, not of the person that I am. I am different from this physical body. And that is what Bhagavad Gita tells us very clearly. And the jiva after death passes over and accepts another body after death. Now, this is something that we can't see. So for us, it is difficult to believe. A lot of people also ask me whether is there really a next life? Do you believe in the next life? When the Shastra tells us, this is something which is beyond human imagination, intelligence, or understanding. And that's why these are the things that we have to have faith in our Shastra, and we have to believe it, what it says, right? And this transition is dependent on our karma and karma phala principle. So karma phala is what we do, what we sow, we reap. So essentially what we put, what karma we do. If we do good karma, we'll get better, good results. If we do not so good karma or bad karma, we'll get bad results. And this system is quite a foolproof system. So this is just the background. Now, if I have to quote some of the shlokas to understand, I would first quote this shloka, which is the 11th shloka of the second adhyaya. And this is where Shri Krishna starts his message to Arjuna. And through Arjuna, this message is to the entire humanity, for us. And Bhagavan says to Arjuna, Shri Bhagavan Uvacha, Ashocyananva shochastvam pragna vadanscha bhashase. He's saying, he says, you are feeling sad for something which is not worth for, and you still speak like a wise man, Arjuna. And he says, Gatasuna, Agatasunsha. So for people who have left us, those who have died, and those who have not yet left us, those who are alive with us, Nanu Shochanti Pandita. Says the wise person does not grieve for such things. So if we have wisdom, we will not grieve. And if we grieve, that means we don't have wisdom. It's very clear. This first shloka only says very clearly that the wise men never grieve for people who have left us, who have died. That is the power of this wisdom. If we can understand this wisdom, then there is no reason for us to have any kind of a sorrow or any grief in our life. Bhagavad Gita tells us very clearly that I am eternal, my true essence, my true self is eternal. It is only the physical body that dies. In the next shlokas after, in the second adhyaya, Bhagavan says that for the Jivatma, the body undergoes several changes. Right? Kaumaram, Yauvanam, Jara means we pass on from the child, we become an adult to old age, and Tatha Dehantara Prapti. And after death, we attain another body after death, and Dhirastatrana Muhyati. And the wise person who understands this will never be deluded, he will never undergo any delusion or moha, and he will not be attached to this kind of events, because they know that this is the reality. And it is for us to accept this reality so that we can understand that death is not our end, it is just a transition into another life. So Bhagavad Gita tells us that my true self is eternal, it is changeless, I am not born, I don't die, Atma is najayate mriyate va kadachit nayam bhutva bhavita vana bhuyaha. That means Atma is never produced, never it comes into existence. It is ajaha, it is unborn, it is nitya, it is eternal, it is shashwat purana, and it is never killed. Even when the body is killed, the Atma is not killed. And for us, this thing, sounds like something esoteric. It's difficult for us to understand. Yes, it is. But for this, we have to devote a lot of our time to Shastra, to understand what Shastra tells us from a learned guru. And then only we can understand what Bhagavan Shri Krishna is telling us. Otherwise, we'll only feel that this is something that esoteric, Krishna is talking something out of the world. We are not able to understand. So what is this Atman is something that we need to understand. But the best way to understand is that we can experience that. We can feel that. And that is what we can feel even when we sit in meditation. We can really experience our own self, which is beyond this body, which is beyond this mind, this thoughts. Because there's something that we can see all these thoughts, we can see the body. And by this logical way, we can, try to go to the core of our essence. The other most profound shloka that I find in Bhagavad Gita is this shloka, which many of you must be knowing. It is written and inscribed in many crematoriums also. It says, Vasansi Jirnani Yatha Vihaya. Death is like changing old clothes and wearing new ones. So it's just like a person sheds off old clothes, Navani Grihanati Naroparani, and wears new clothes, Tatha Sharirani Vihaya Jirnani. Similarly, the Jiva, when the body becomes old, the Jiva leaves this body, Anyani Sanyati Navani Dehi, and enters or accepts a new body. So this is the same thing that Bhagavan is telling us, that death is not the end, it is a changeover from one life to the other life. But Shri Krishna also comes to our level of understanding. And from our own understanding, he will tell us that even if you believe that, okay, death is the only definite event after birth, even then, he tells us, why do you have to lament for this kind of a definite event if it is, because it is anyway going to be definite, accept this reality of even the material world, that death is the, it is. This says, one who is born is destined to die. And dhruvam janma mrutasya cha, one who dies is sure to be reborn. Tasmad apariharyarthe. Then for this kind of a certainty in life, natvam shochitum arhasi. He says there is no reason for you to grieve, because if this is a reality that if once you are born, the only certain thing is that you are going to die. And once you die, the only certain thing is that you are going to have a rebirth. Then for this certainty, why do you have to lament for something that is inevitable? We should not lament. So that is a worldview that Krishna teaches us. And most of the other religions also, if you see, they try to, and they tell us that the root of the suffering is our attachment. And this is also what Bhagavad Gita tells us in great details in many of the shlokas. Bhagavan Krishna says, Tasmad asakta satatam. That's why he says, be unattached and do all your kartavya karma, all your duties in your life. And the question is how we can overcome these attachments. Krishna tells us to do karma yoga. Karma yoga is a very powerful tool. We are all engrossed in our actions all throughout the day. If we can do these actions with the right attitude, then we can go and attain our final goal. Bhagavan Krishna says, do your duties without attachment in the best possible manner. Asakto yacharan karma. And if you keep on doing this without attachment, param mapnoti purushaha. You can attain the highest goal that our human life is bestowed with. And karma leads to this kind of an ultimate freedom if we can do our actions in the most appropriate manner. Coming to the next, crisis, that is a loss or a failure. Failure of any sort, could be financial, exam failure, or any other failures that we will have in life. Now, our understanding of our life is generally, we experience that there are ups and downs in life, but during the ups, we are quite happy. And during the downs, we feel quite sad. So these are also, the ups and downs of life. We generally don't complain in the good times because we are happy. When the times go down, when things turn upside down, then we try to complain. But then we should ask a question that we never complain in the good times. Why do we have to complain in the not so good ones? Because if the life is like a roller coaster, if you go up, you are happy. When you go down, you should also be, not feeling so sad about it. So one can remain balanced in such dualities of life, because life is a duality. It is called dvandva in the Shastric terminology. So dvandva means there are two sides. Life always has two sides. The good and the bad, the happy and the sad, the profit and the loss, and day and the night. Everything is having two sides. Whether can we remain balanced? Yes, this is the power that we have to remain and maintain this equanimity. And in Bhagavad Gita, this equanimity is called samatva. And samatva has been discussed in many, many adhyayas. Almost many of the adhyayas, Bhagavan Krishna discusses about this equipoised state of our mind, a perfect balance, how we can remain in this equipoised state without getting, swayed by this kind of emotions and situations. And this is something that we can understand and learn with practice. Krishna tells Arjuna that endure these ups and downs of life. He says, Matra svarshastu kaunteya. Means when the sense organs come into contact with objects, sitoshna sukha dukkhadaha. There will be an experience of these dualities like heat, cold, pleasure, pain. But Krishna tells us, agama paino nityam. They are all transient. They will come and they will also pass away. They will go away after some time. Tam titikshasva bharata. He says, oh Arjuna, you endure them. This is where you have to develop this kind of endurance. And this is not the physical endurance that we try to do treadmill and develop. This is the mental endurance of enduring the ups and downs of life. And in spite of them, remaining neutral, remaining balanced. And this is a skill that can be learned. Though, let me tell you that this is not easy. It requires a lot of training of our mind to learn this kind of a skill to remain balanced. But if we learn this skill, it will help us in every aspect of our life, not just our personal life, but even in our professional life. Because I feel that as a surgeon, we see a lot of unexpected situations during our surgery, sometimes even complications, major bleeding and things like that, major trauma. we have to remain very calm and balanced to take an appropriate decision during this scenario, during this crisis. And that's something that Bhagavad Gita teaches us to do, even in amidst all the different and the aspects of life. So how can we attain this kind of samatva? Samatva is complete acceptance, but complete acceptance not with a pressure that, I will accept, but underneath I have suppressed myself. It is not that way. It is complete acceptance with joy. It is a joyful acceptance of the situation without having any kind of suppressed desires. And being happy, I've said, is very natural. It is our response to the situation, but we can literally change this programming. And this responses are due to our attachments and our aversions, what in Bhagavad Gita is called as raga, dvesha. These are the two words which are very unique to Bhagavad Gita, and you will see this, of course, they'll be in other shastras also, but raga and dvesha. Raga means our attachment, our strong likes, and dvesha is our aversions or dislikes, that there are certain things that I don't like, and that's why I want that thing to be away from me. So this is the dvesha, and this is the root cause of most of our attachments and aversions. And these raga, dvesha, they are in our mind, our senses, and they are definitely within our control. And this is what Shri Krishna tells us, that with training and increasing our self-awareness, we can gradually dissolve, or no, in Shastra it is called Shithilikaran of the raga, dvesha. We need to, make them a little bit less intense or less strong. Of course, we cannot avoid them completely, but we can make them quite relaxed, and we can have more of acceptance, more of reduced expectations from others. And this is the programming that we can change to attain samatva. Krishna tells us to remain samatva in all situations. Like he says, samadukha sukham dhiram. In our pleasure, in our pain, remain composed, remain the same. And only such people are eligible for this Atmagnan, the self-knowledge, which is the highest goal that Krishna talks about in Bhagavad Gita. So the first step is to develop this kind of equipoise, balance of mind. Only then we can understand this very subtle kind of the knowledge that Krishna is telling us, that only a balanced person can achieve this kind of eternal bliss and can develop the faith and surrender to the grand design of life. Describing qualities of the enlightened wise person as Sita Prajna in the second Adhyaya, the final 18 shlokas, again says that one who is not agitated in grief or sorrow, and one who has no longing for attachment, fear, and danger, that person is the Sthita Prajna. He describes this person who is an enlightened wise person, and again tells us to maintain our calms at all times in our life. The another major message is about karma yoga, how we can take right actions. In family crisis, sometimes the right actions are very, very important, how we deal with our family members. And, so karma, as it in our Shastra, in Bhagavad Gita, it's not just actions. We generally believe that karma means some movement or cheta or actions. But according to our Shastra, karma are thoughts, words, and actions. Because ultimately, whatever we are going to act, first it will be in the thoughts, and then it will come out in our words, or will translate into actions. And that's why karma includes all these three. And karma yoga means the appropriate or the correct thoughts, the correct words, and the correct actions. So this is how there are several attitudes of karma yoga: the mindfulness, being mindful of our thoughts, self-introspection of our own attitudes, which helps us to change our attitudes and our action. But this creates a subtle but a very profound change in our life. The most important shloka of karma yoga, as you all know, karmanya vadika raste, every Indian would know this shloka. Ma phaleshu kadachana. This is the central shloka in the second adhyaya. That karmanya vadika raste means we have a right to choose our actions, what to do, what not to do. That right is with us. That choice is mine. But ma phaleshu kadachana, I do not have the right or the choice to decide the results of my action, because there are several other factors which will determine what will be the result. Suppose I give exams, I can decide how I'll perform in the exams, but I can't decide how many marks I will get in the exams. So that result is not under my control. And this is something that we have to understand, accept. That is very important. Ma karma phala hetur buhu means don't just act only for results. Don't be selfish in your actions. Don't just act with your results in mind. Generally, we try to do this, we'll do this. We always think, what will I get if I do this? What will I get? That is how humans, work. Mate sangosva karmani. Don't be attached to inaction. Don't become lazy. Don't be inactive. One should remain in action. That is what Bhagavan Krishna wants us to do, that we should do our best and leave the rest. That is, in a sentence, we can summarize the shloka. And skill in action is karma yoga. It describes many other attitudes. Samatvam yoga ujjate says being composed is karma yoga. That we do not be attached to results of action, be poised in success and failure, and equanimity is karma yoga. Our emotions, they can become our friends or our enemy, and there is always a tug of war between our emotional mind, our thoughts, and our rational brain, which gives us a logic or a rationality to us. And in crisis, it is the emotions that rule the roost. The rationality is forgotten. And that's why the decisions that we make in the crisis are not the most appropriate. And that's why we need to train ourselves to, go through the crisis. But even in the crisis, if the rationality and sense prevails, then we can take a proper, well thought of, appropriate decision even in the crisis. And Bhagavad Gita helps us to modulate our emotions, to channelize our emotions towards the Almighty and have devotion in our life with faith, love, and respect for the God. So Bhakti Yoga is another very powerful tool to purify our emotions, which is the second path, which is shown in Bhagavad Gita, devotion. And this devotion starts from a faith in the Creator, in this very beautiful, intelligent creation that we are seeing. There has to be an intelligent Creator. And this Creator, we may call it by various names, and how we can connect to that Creator or the Almighty. We need to love this Creator, the God. We don't need to fear God, as other religions teach us that there is punishment, you go to hell and things like that. But in our Shastra, in our Hinduism, there is never, that we don't need to fear God. We also always need to love God by devotion, by bhakti, and live our life according to values. And in Bhagavad Gita, a lot of moral values have been shown in several different adhyayas, starting from 13th adhyaya, 14th adhyaya, 16th adhyaya, the Daivi Asuri Sampatti Vibhaga. So all these, they show us different values, human values in life, what we should obtain, and we can please the Lord by our actions. Chanting of God's name is very powerful tool to remain calm and, in the moment, in the presence, and surrendering to the grand design of the Lord is another way. And then accepting everything as it comes to us as God's will is how a devotee would look to any situation. And that is how the devotee is able to accept the situation. The final 6 adhyayas, they are devoted mostly to the Gnana Yoga. Gnana is the knowledge. And in view of Gita, in the view of Krishna, and in the view of Vedanta and our Shastra, knowledge is the most powerful thing. It's only with the knowledge that we can erase this ignorance and obtain or attain this ultimate goal of our life. So knowledge is the power. And knowledge is about what? Knowledge about, not about the routine medicine or the things that we do daily. Knowledge about our phone. It's not this knowledge. It's the knowledge, not of the physics or science or our life, but it is the knowledge of the existence, the knowledge of our true knowledge of ourself, that the knowledge of the Tattva or the God or the Creator, who is the creator. And then this also involves interconnectedness, to see that oneness in the existence. And this is a central message of Vedanta, where it tells us that there is only one Advitiya Brahma. Brahma is the highest, universal consciousness, and this is just one. It also tells us the reality, the knowledge of the reality in the day-to-day life, because only with that we'll be able to reach to the ultimate, goal. So correct knowledge will lead to correct actions, and this is why correct knowledge is so important. And Shastra tells us that Atma, our real essence, is indestructible. It can never be destroyed. Nainam chindanti shastrani, nainam dahati pavaka. We all know about, we have heard somewhere about these shlokas, but we have to get into the gist. and to understand it, to actually imbibe this in our life. And that only if we can walk on the path and try to understand what is telling us, what is our true essence, how it is changeless, how it is indestructible, and understanding for this we need to take help of our intellect. And Bhagavan Krishna tells us that we should use our intellect always. Durena yavaram karma buddhi yoga jananjaya. He says, do all your actions with the right understanding, with using your intellect, with using all. Take buddha usharanam, take help of your intellect. Take and those who work only for results are miser. And that's why we need to use our intellect, not just our emotions. Yes, emotions are important in our life, but ultimately when we take the decision, we have to give a proper thought to the situation, see that from all the sides, what is called as a pratipaksha bhavana. You have to see it from all the sides, you see both the sides, and then you take the appropriate decision in life. Finally, when Shri Krishna is ending his message in the 18th adhyaya, the final adhyaya, the 66th shloka, this is where his message ends. And this shloka is also very profound shloka, where he tells us to surrender to the will of his destiny, the design, the grand design. And this is the Gnana Yoga, with the path, with the understanding of the knowledge. He says, Sarva Dharman Parityajya, renounce all your duties. Mamekam Sharanam Braja, come to my shelter, he says. Aham tva sarva papebhyo, I shall relieve you of all sins. Moksha Shyami Mashusha, you don't worry, I shall give you the highest goal that you are looking for. But this has to be seen in a context. You know, we can't say that we just renounce everything and just take God's shelter and everything will be done. That is not the idea. Bhagavad Gita has to be seen in its context. The context is, the first and the last part. Everything has to be seen. For example, in the 6th adhyaya, it tells us that our self-efforts are most vital. We can't leave everything to the Almighty. He says, Uddaret Atman Atmanam. He says, elevate yourself by your own self alone. Nobody else is going to elevate you. So you have to, don't let yourself down. He says, you are your own friend and you are your own enemy. Do your best. And that is where he tells us to do our own efforts. So in any given situation, we have to do our best efforts. Karma yoga is the most important. And finally, once we have done everything with the understanding that the results are not under my control, then we have to accept whatever results we have, and then we have to surrender to the grand design. The context of Bhagavad Gita is with our life. So coming to the last slide to summarize, crisis management. Bhagavad Gita is a master manual of crisis. In my opinion, there is no better manual in this universe than Bhagavad Gita to have crisis management, because it touches all the aspects, all the different aspects of our life. My own experience, my past experience, and my present experience with a little bit understanding of Gita Ji has shown to me that, I can really use this knowledge in my life. And that's why it is very important to learn Gita Ji during our lifetime. It's not a manual that we can live. We can think that, okay, after I retire, I'll understand Bhagavad Gita. No, I don't think. I think very strongly that Bhagavad Gita must be understood and lived in life, because this is a manual of our life. So whenever there is an impulse or a stimulus, and between the impulse and the response or the reaction, whatever we can reproduce, there is a space where we can select the appropriate response. And only with this increased awareness of our own self, our witness self, we can analyze all these choices, choose the correct choice in the given crisis, and manage the crisis appropriately. So life is a journey. We keep learning along the way, but change is the only constant thing in life. And that's why we should embrace the change. We have to be ready for the change. And this helps us to get out of our comfort zone, to try and understand, to try and change our programming is definitely possible. This is what Bhagavad Gita teaches us. But it also tells us that in midst of all this that is changing, there is one changeless thing. And this is what we need to know. That is the ultimate reality of the existence. So with this, I come to the end of this talk. And this is the book that was released that Dr. Dhiren Bhai was talking about. I think this is what has qualified me to come and talk about this topic here. I would like to thank Shri Krishna, my teacher, Puja Guruma, with whose kind grace I've been able to learn, understand, and try to share and translate the teachings of my teacher into this book, which is now available. We have a team of Bhagavad Gita who helps us to do, we have WhatsApp group through which we share a few shlokas every day with the meaning and the understanding. And I thank all of you for being a patient listener and trying to, understand what Bhagavad Gita tries to tell us for crisis management. So thank you, all of you. Thank you, all the office bearers, Dhiren Bhai, Tushar Bhai, and everyone.
Yeah. Thank you, Dr. Sanjiv, for excellent overview of Bhagavad Gita. And you really covered the important slokas of Bhagavad Gita. Now, you are a vast, voracious reader. And I would like to ask you, like we have Veds, Upanishad. So do we have more knowledge related to this, the crisis management in those, the books, or like everything is available in the Gita?
So let me give you a gist of, this question. I think Gita is called the summary of the Upanishad. Now, Upanishad is, it's part of the knowledge part, or the, knowledge part of the Veda. So Veda essentially has two parts. One is called Karma Kanda, and the other is called the Jnana Kanda. Now, almost 80% of the Vedas is Karma Kanda. Karma Kandas are rituals, what we should do, what we should not do, all the different rituals, different. So this is Karma Kanda. But the 20% part of the Vedas is Jnana Kanda. And within this Jnana Kanda is essentially Upanishad. And this is also called the Vedanta. Vedanta is the knowledge part, the knowledge path to attain the divine, right? So the gist of all the Upanishads is Bhagavad Gita. So Bhagavad Gita is, it's the ultimate, gist, which is something which is written in a way that we as mortals can understand. If we go to the Upanishads are more difficult to understand for us, because in a very few words, a lot of things would be said. So unless there is a teacher, guru, who tries to explain us, it will be very difficult. Whereas in Bhagavad Gita, the seeker is Arjuna here. Arjuna is the he's the seeker here. And in Upanishad, the seekers are like Nachiketa for, Kathopanishad. They are all much more detached, much more matured, much more vairagi. And for them, few words, they could understand the knowledge. So that's the difference between Upanishad and Gita. So Gita is a much more simpler version of the same knowledge that is enshrined in the Upanishad. The same knowledge is given in the Bhagavad Gita. So Bhagavad Gita is no different from these Shastra. They're one and the same. Actually, some of the shlokas are just them, like, the shlokas that na hanyate, na mane hanyate, the Atma does not kill anyone. The same shloka is in Kathopanishad also. So a lot of shlokas which are there in Upanishad are there in Bhagavad Gita also.
Yeah, Tushar.
Bhagavad Gita about dealing with competition. The sense of competition that we feel amidst each other at various levels. And I'm sure you understand.
Yes, yes. So what is the question?
So the question is that Bhagavad Gita gave me advice on how calmly with this sense of competition that you perceive.
So I think the first slide said or answered your question, that Bhagavad Gita tells us to look within, not to look outside. When we look outside, we see competition. When we look within, we only compete with our own self. We don't compete with anyone else. We just try to improve upon our own self. This is what I've done today. Tomorrow, I want to do it better. And that is what we keep doing it. This is how we keep improving or improving on others. You don't look at others at all, because everybody is on their own path. And we don't need to, compare ourselves, or for that matter, compete with anyone, because everybody is at a different stage of their life with a different scenario. So this is, I think, the most profound message of Bhagavad Gita is that we can only look within, and there is no need to compete with others. And that's what creates the problems. If you look into the details of why the Varna Vyavastha, the 4 Varnas, the 4 ashramas, our own Vedic lifestyle, why it came. Actually, the precise reason was to avoid any competition, because the main purpose of life was to attain the highest goal. And all the other material, accomplishments, or, our desires, were all antecedent. They were like a step to attain that highest goal. So that's why they never wanted competition in this life, so that people could attain their highest goal, But unfortunately, we have all forgotten that. Now we believe that that was a very bad system. Actually, it was never a bad system. The system was such a good system, because the life was conducive to attain a higher goal. Today, in competition, we just look at each other. We try to compete, mad race. It's a rat race. And in a rat race, even if the person wins, he's still a rat. So I think it's a mad race that we are all into. And that's why I don't think it makes sense to get into the race. And I firmly believe that the best way to compete is to compete with our own self, rather than competing with anyone else.
So we should not look for.
Not at all. There is no reason to. There is no reason to. Unless you want to learn from the good things of others. You want to be inspired from the attribute of others. Somebody has achieved something in life. If you want to learn that this person has done so much in a short period of life, like Narayan Murthy, he has achieved so much in his life in one lifetime. I mean, we can learn the good things from them, but there is no point competing with our peers, because everybody has their own choices. Everybody has their own freedom to choose what they want to do in life. They have their own ways of achieving. Their goals are different. The methods they employ to reach their goals are different. So what is the point in competing?
Okay, Sanjiv, we discuss about the one side of the issue, that's the crisis. Let's talk of the other side, like when we have a success, we tends to have ego. So that is also we need to control. So what are your thoughts on that?
So Bhagavad Gita talks a lot about it. I did not purposefully include this topic in today's presentation, but the main problem, the attachments, comes out of the egocentricness. So there are 2 major problems for us. One is aham, and second is mama. Aham means I, and I understand myself as this very limited body and mind complex. And that's why I believe that I'm something, I'm a doctor, I am this, I have achieved this, I can do this, and that's how we operate. Everybody should give me respect. Everybody should have some kind of, this is our expectation. This is how we operate. And with this comes the mama, mine, mamata, the attachment, that this is mine, this is my house, this is my family, my children, my patients. We get attached to even our patients, that this is my patient. How come this patient went away from my clinic, or why did they go away to other doctor? So this is how we get attached. And this is from where we have to, see ourselves and clearly try to reduce this. Ego happens with the doership feeling. It is called kartrutva. Kartrutva is that I believe that I'm the doer. So that's how it fuels a kind of an expectation that my patient should praise me, that I've done so much well. I've done so good for the patient. In spite of that, the patient is not praising me, does not feel gratitude for me. We get upset. So this is because we have this kind of a very strong kartrutva. Everybody has this doership feeling, kartrutva. But Bhagavan Krishna tells us that, what you are. Everything, we feel that we are the doer. We are not the doer. We are just instruments. Nimitta matram bhava savya sachi. He tells Arjuna in in the 11th Adhyaya, the Vishwarupa Darshana, that you are like Nimitta Matra. He is showing him the Vishwarupa and telling him that, see, you are thinking that Bhishma, Drona, everybody is going to be killed. See, they are already killed. You see in my body here, they are already killed. They are going to be killed. In spite of you doing it or not. That's why he says, Savya Sachi, Nimitta Matram Bhava. So be an instrument, as if you are the instrument of this doing. That this job is being done, this operation is being done. I am the instrument. Just like I use instruments in doing the operation, I am also an instrument in this surgery being performed. That's how we have to look at our own self, as an instrument, rather than the person who is doing it, because otherwise that ego comes up. And whenever people praise us, as doctors, very often people will come, sir, doctor, aap to Bhagwan hai, aapne mere bete ko bachaya, this, that, the other. Just immediately within us, we pass on that praise to the Almighty. I'm the instrument. I'm not done it. The Almighty has done it. We just pass it on. So we don't have that kind of an ego, does not bloat within us. That is, these are some of the subtle ways we can, how we accept success, how we accept praise, respect. Because only if we learn this, only then when the downturn comes, we will not be upset. First, we have to understand how we accept and deal with success and fame. If we can learn this, then the other part is not difficult. But the problem is that we want to be happy and very happy with our success. At the same time, when failure comes, we say, why I failed, So that's the problem.
Can this ties Bhagavad Gita lead to complacency?
Sorry?
Can it lead to complacency?
Complacency? No, not at all. If you read and understand Karma Yoga, wow, it is so profound. It is so profound. It can never lead to complacency. Complacency can only occur when we see it in different parts and we don't understand the gist of Gita. Gita talks about Karma Yoga because entire our life is full of actions. It never tells us, none of the Shastra tells us to renounce this world, to renounce duties, to become a sannyasi. Nowhere. If you read the 4th Adhyaya, the 5th Adhyaya, it starts with this question of Arjuna, whether I should do my karma or I should take sannyasa. This is a question of Arjuna in the 3rd Adhyaya, the first shloka, and in the 5th Adhyaya, the first shloka. This is the same question of Arjuna, to which Krishna answers that Karma Yoga is much better than Karma Sannyasa. Don't take sannyasa. You do your karma. Karma is something that you need to do. So Krishna never tells us to renounce, to become a sannyasi. In this householder way, the karma path is the best path to attain salvation. It's the best way to go forward. So that is the beauty of our Hinduism, our way of life, that even within being a householder, you don't need to be a sannyasi like other religion would say, In our thing, you become a householder, do your duties, whatever, towards your mother, father, towards your children, towards your wife, whatever you do your duties towards your patients, do it in the best possible way. And still, whenever time comes, you do some devotion. During your work, you also remember the Lord, chant his name, think about him, that whenever you do something good, yes, it is this attributes that you have given me that I have been able to do this. Even if we do or something good to others, we always remember the God, that it's because of his grace that I've been able to get this and do this, right? So that is how we can gradually, purify ourselves, cleanse ourselves, get the doership or the egoship away from ourselves gradually. It's a gradual process. It takes years and years, and we are always in the process.
Okay, so like already we are coming to the end of the session, and Dr. Sanjiv, you really explained us very important points of our life in a very systematic way. I really enjoyed your message and the way to convince us that almost all difficult problems have solution in Bhagavad Gita.
Absolutely.
So with that, I would like to thank you. I would also like to thank the OrthoTV team for giving us this platform, and all the viewers across the globe joining us for this program. So thank you once again, and we will again be with a new program once we have a new author in our mind. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
Including remark can I make, sir?
Yes, yes.
Yeah.
So, sir has taken us from unconscious incompetence to conscious incompetence. And
Yes.
gradually, as we begin our study of the Bhagavad Gita and do the practices, we will move to conscious competence. And hopefully, God's blessings, we will be able to incorporate it at subconscious level. And Bhagavad Gita will become a part of our
Of our life.
routine and our
Yeah.
life. Thanks. Thanks a lot.
Yeah.
Thank
Thank
you
you.
very much. Thank
Thank
you.
you. And bye-bye.
Bye-bye.